for the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is game time as the Sooners getting set to take on UTEP in the season opener coming up on Saturday. We are here on a Thursday and Friday podcasting to you, and we're joined by Josh McCuistion, who's out on the road. Eddie Radosevich is in studio, and we bring Josh back in now. And Josh, how you doing, sir? You surviving the hurricanes?
Yeah, it is. Actually making my way through Houston right now. This is the first time in a week that I've gotten more than about 5 miles from my house. That's how just unbelievable. And you look around at different parts of the city, and it's just crazy. Some areas look like they've always looked, and then some it's just kind of staggering to see the amount of water that's still standing in some places.
It is. I mean, I don't know if you could kind of give people an idea. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing it on the news. How many are we talking into the hundreds of thousands of people that have had to evacuate and are in shelters right now? What's kind of a number that's been floating around out there?
Well, at one point you heard as many as 300,000. Now, everybody I've talked to says that there is a good amount of that is starting to be able to at least return to their home, start going through their items, see what's salvageable. Some, obviously can go back and live there, but there's plenty that, that's going to be a long time before their houses are back to a safe condition. So it's one of those things. People kept asking me, and I know you guys checked on me a lot, family members, those kind of things. And it was a really tough line to walk because we didn't lose power. We didn't, everything for us was just about we had to stay inside. We had to find ways to keep Laney busy, those kind of things. So, I mean, there certainly were adjustments, but, I mean, very, very minimal. Like, it feels so wrong to even bring them up. But at the same time, I don't want to say that and give people this impression like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. For some people, this was just catastrophic. I mean, for a lot of people. And it's so hard to kind of walk that line where I don't want to make it about, oh, this is really tough for me, but I also don't want anybody to get the impression that this was some small thing, because for me it wasn't a big problem.
It was all just really incredible watching it all unfold. And, Josh, I don't, definitely not making light of the situation, but there are so many areas that you have gone to cover games that I feel like were just hit extremely hard. I mean, when you think about, CeeDee Lamb being from the Richmond area, the Katy area, was extremely impacted.
Katy
it seemed
bad,
like
didn't it?
The Cy Falls area, or the Cypress area seemed like it was really bad. There was just so many areas that, Josh, you go out and then I end up cutting the video up and it's like, God, there are so many areas in the Houston area, in the Houston metro that were affected by this, obviously, but it was just incredible to watch from afar. It was, I'm glad that everybody was okay and, that we know and everything like that. So it was just incredible.
Well, and I tell you what, I'll probably put up some links in our podcast when I put up the podcast as a story to various agencies. I mean, there's all kinds of agencies out there that are working full time. The Red Cross obviously always comes to mind in situations like this. United Way, Salvation Army. I mean, I know those are three. If you wonder, every time I go to the store, it was kind of cool yesterday. I just went to like Dollar General and they're like, would you want to give $1 to Red Cross for Hurricane Harvey relief? And I was like, yeah, I mean, like I'll do that every time. So, if somebody's doing that in a store, I know I'm willing to give $5, just here or there. And certainly, I think we as a site are probably going to make a donation. We might challenge you guys to match that as well, or, at least to give what you can give. So we'll definitely put up some links, and yeah, I definitely want to do something site-wide to kind of promote contributing to relief efforts for this just terrible, terrible situation down in Houston.
It was absolutely incredible to watch over the last, 3 days, to watch J.J. Watt every time he tweets. It's like 3 million here.
He's up to 10 million now, I think.
He just wanted $1 million, right?
Yeah.
He made it a $100,000 donation and then said he wanted to get to $1 million, and all of a sudden it ballooned to $10 million, and it was pretty unbelievable just from a social media aspect.
And did you see like all the NFL teams that were like giving like $1 million? Like the Lions were giving $1 million. I think
incredible.
The Vikings. I mean, it's amazing to see the support, especially on the NFL. I'm sure other sports have done it, but and it's kind of bizarre because you got baseball going on right now and all that stuff, and you had there was supposed to be a final preseason game between the Cowboys and the Texans tonight. And that was going to go to hurricane relief, but then they went ahead and canceled it and told people to go home with their families. So it's been not just seeing the volunteers down there. I mean, watching the footage, I've been kind of glued every time something comes up, like the people flying helicopters and rescuing babies and things like that, the pet rescues that have been going on. And seeing the lines for people that are just there to volunteer being some of the biggest lines in Houston. It's been amazing to see.
Yeah, it really has. And, I thought just from a social media aspect, obviously not being down there or around that area, it's been pretty cool to see how many celebrities, even just like the BS Instagram quote-unquote celebrities have started to raise, funds or tried to reach out and get to people that are in need of help. I know that Shea Serrano from The Ringer was retweeting everybody that needed help or a boat to get out of stuff. So it was, cool isn't the right word, but I guess heartwarming would be
cool.
a better.
People are cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So instead of jacking around, we've donated our jacking around time to serious issues and the hurricane relief that's going on. So let's get into game week. OU versus UTEP. All the media is over with. Had a chance to talk to Lincoln Riley last night for a little bit, just with some of the other beat writers. We kind of have a special session that we get to have with the head coach, and Lincoln's continue that tradition. But really, guys, I think Monday, his press conference and some of the things that he went ahead and shared about depth charts and quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks and kickers, special teams. I would say it wasn't Monday when it came out, but to have the depth chart come out. What was it? Wednesday? Was it yesterday?
Yep.
And to have CeeDee Lamb number 1 at receiver, I think that was probably the most. I don't know, Josh. For you, was that the most shocking or most surprising or biggest news item that you saw with that release?
It was to me, and I think what was interesting was, you were talking about you guys having a chance to sit down with him yesterday, the beat guys and that kind of thing, and I thought it was very interesting how he almost tried to pull it in a little bit,
Yeah.
Well, he's going to be the guy out there for the first snap and that kind of thing, and so you can tell they're really being careful of walking that line with Sedarian. But it's what we've talked about. I mean, I've said it a bunch of times. I think he's the most gifted receiver in the Bob Stoops era as far as somebody they signed, somebody they brought in. And, I mean, you're talking about first-round draft picks in that group, Bolitnikoff winners. I mean, it's a mouthful to say, but that's a guy that, if he could understand the mental side of it, there was no way they could keep him off the field.
Well, and here, let me play some of Lincoln. Here he is talking about players that they're going to redshirt, and we can talk about some of the guys he leaves off. Charleston Rambo's a guy that's still in. People were asking me today, like, well, he's redshirting. He's like, he's one of those guys in limbo. I mean, Lincoln told us yesterday, I think he was asked directly, how many receivers could you see yourself playing? He said, I can see us playing 10. I could see us playing 12, actually.
I ran back and made sure that I heard that right when he said that, Carey. 10 to 12 guys it makes sense, though, with what, if you look back to the stats that came out of East Carolina, they had plenty of guys, or no-name guys, that caught a lot of passes.
But here's Lincoln Riley talking about kind of his redshirting policy.
Some of the guys that we are planning on redshirting that could change, but the guys that we are planning on redshirting, Adrian Ely, Marquise Hayes, Tyrese Robinson, those on the offensive line, not a surprise with all the returners that we have coming back. And then Creed Humphrey's a guy we're still debating and have yet to make that decision. Kennedy Brooks and Levi Draper, both both have had season-ending shoulder surgery, so those guys will be out this year and should both be ready to go for spring ball. And then on defense as well, Jakari Daly, Zach McKinney, and Troy James, all three of those guys, we feel like at this point are headed towards a redshirt year. They've all shown good promise, and we're excited about them, but that is the plan going forward. The other true freshmen, if I didn't name their names, obviously we're considering playing them or feel certain that we're going to play. There's a few that we know right off the top. CeeDee Lamb will play, Robert Barnes, Trey Norwood, Trey Sermon. So a couple of guys there that we feel pretty certain will play. Tyrese Lott will play.
So, yeah, I mean, Tyrese Lott, I think maybe the other, because, at one point we were talking to Ruffin McNeil and Mike Stoops, and I think it was Mike Stoops that said he didn't think any of his freshmen linemen would play this year early in camp. And obviously, I asked him the other day what was so special about it. He just raved about the way he moves, his size and the way and guys, he's backing up Neville Gallimore. I mean, he's the true freshman backups on this two deep is almost astonishing.
I think there were 7 true freshmen and 10 guys from the 2017 class that were included on the two deep yesterday. I guess that's a tip of the cap to recruiting, and it was interesting too, Carey, just listening to Lincoln Riley talk about on Wednesday night, just talk about kind of their recruiting pitch to guys, and that it's more of a what have you done for me lately type of thing, and I think that's kind of it goes a long way on both ends, especially on the recruiting side, and then even more so on the team side to show that they are actually doing that.
Well, but he did say that, but he also kind of went out of his way to talk about how guys that have been there and done it, that means something to them too. But right. I mean, you have to look at it. A.D. Miller, what's he really done? Jordan Smallwood, what's he really done? I mean, none of those guys it's just like, I thought it was kind of, and I wrote about this in my depth chart analysis, I think it's a disappointment that Mykel Jones was not able to separate himself from a walk-on. And you had Miles Tees listed as or. It wasn't like Mykel Jones was listed as the 1 and Tees was the 2. It was an or situation. And when you you lose a guy like Nick Basquin, Mykel Jones got a ton of reps in camp. He should have been able to separate himself, and he hasn't done it yet. That to me is a little bit concerning. I don't know how you felt about that, Josh.
I agree completely, Carey. That's one of those ones that I thought, man, we talked about it. When the Basquin news came down, there was a conversation we had in the pod about, well, this is Mykel Jones' chance. He needs to seize it. And you guys met with him, I think, that following week, and he talked about, I want to be an All-American. I want to do all this stuff. Well, you got to start with separating yourself from a walk-on.
I mean, and I don't mean
that as a – yeah, I mean –
a transfer from UCO. You got to be better than that. You got recruited by everybody in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, and you guys, I mean, I realize the way I say that sounds so derogatory, and I don't really mean it that way, but this isn't a guy that they're talking about like we were hearing about Nick Basquin for a year before he kind of stepped. Like you could tell you had a belief that walk-on or not, Nick Basquin was a playmaker for them.
And you saw it in games.
You're not hearing them talk this about Miles Tees. Yeah, I mean, and Nick backed that up. Yeah, I don't mean that to say like that's just them believing it. No, I mean, he backed that up. But you're not hearing people talk about Miles Tees like that. It sounds like we just don't really have an option we like better right now.
And here's the problem for Mykel Jones. They can just remove that. They don't have to have that position on the field if they're not having production out of it. I mean, Lee Morris is a backup tight end now. I mean, he's 6'2", 215. I know they don't really put their hand on the ground or anything, but to move him over behind Calcaterra and Andrews, I'm curious about that. I don't know what that says either. Back to what we were talking about with the true freshmen. Just going down. Here are your backup true freshmen, guys that have just played high school football last year. Robert Barnes backing up Will Johnson at free safety. Trey Norwood and Trey Brown backing up Jordan Thomas. And though we all know if Jordan Thomas went down, Jordan Parker would probably slide over there. Then you have Kenneth Murray starting, and John Michael Terry, a redshirt freshman, backing him up. You've got, as I mentioned, Tyrese Lott backing up Neville Gallimore, and then offensively, you've got a starter in CeeDee Lamb. Jeff Badette being second on the depth chart behind Jeffrey Mead, not super surprising. With some of the things that we've heard that he probably needed to be here in the spring to be further along. But you saw where all the red shirts were coming from. It was on the offensive line. And to be honest, if Eric Wren and Jonathan Alvarez stay healthy, maybe you can. I don't know. Is Creed Humphrey going to be a guy that's only here for 4 years, regardless if he redshirts or not? I mean, to me, that's the question you have to ask.
I would be surprised if they end up redshirting him. I think that they're going to get him action, especially late, and even a game like on Saturday against UTEP. I think you see him getting some snaps.
Well, you almost have to make that determination in game one anymore.
Make the decision if
whether
you're going to
play
redshirt him. Yeah. I would be very surprised if we walk out Saturday night and he's not on the participation chart.
Have you guys heard anything about him having kind of a disappointing fall? Because that's the only thing that makes any sense to why he wouldn't play. Like maybe they feel like, okay, maybe we were too aggressive with our praise in the spring or something. Because from what you were hearing in the spring, he was going to push Wren.
Well, I to be honest, I mean, it kind of became a storyline that we stopped talking about because when we asked somebody about or talked to Bill Beedenbow, he would always rave. Even in the fall, he was raving about Creed Humphrey.
I just never bought into the idea that a true freshman center was going to unseat Eric Wren. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that's a slam on Creed Humphrey, but I don't think that he was ever going to be a starter on this team.
Well, I mean, this is a ridiculous conversation we're having right now. I just have to point this out. We're trying to nitpick at the offensive line,
right?
Like come up with talking points about that's the one position that we shouldn't even have to discuss. I mean, it's ridiculous how deep they are.
The biggest news on the offensive line was Cody Ford not starting, I think.
Yeah. Which we knew that was a possibility. But it just shows you how good Ben Powers is. Ben Powers is really good.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they also were pretty, I mean, you guys obviously were there, so you know about it better than I do, but during his press conference, Lincoln even talked about we're going to have to find some ways to rotate guys and do some things differently, even more. And you've got to think he's talking about Cody Ford. Like, we're going to find ways to get him on the field because he's just such a talented guy.
Right.
Okay, well, so the red shirts come out at Lincoln's press conference. His first press conference, by the way, as a head coach. Game week press conference as a head coach. And then I don't know what I was thinking, but for some reason – backup quarterback was not even on my radar going into that first. Like I just didn't care. You got Baker Mayfield. You figure they're going to use and that's probably it because I know they're probably going to find ways to use Kyler Murray. Regardless if he's the backup quarterback or not, he's a weapon. I mean, you're going to find a way to use him. But it was just kind of a casual press conference, and then Lincoln Riley blurted this out, and I was like, oh, my God, that's actually big news.
The other thing I want to announce is Kyler Murray will be the backup quarterback. Made that decision a few days ago, and the thing that probably weighed most heavily into that decision is the opportunity to redshirt Austin Kendall. Felt like all along going into this competition and a conversation that I had with both those guys going into it is if there was not just a clear separation that we would probably lean towards doing that.
And then I was just like, oh my God, they're redshirting Austin Kendall? Like that was another thought that never really entered my mind is like, you almost forget that he had never had a red shirt. He was the backup quarterback last year as a true freshman.
I don't know if I was just blown away. I mean, I remember there's been a little bit of talk on the board about, throwing that idea out there. I don't know if I ever bought into it, but I think it makes sense. I mean,
it makes total sense. It's a great move, I think.
I definitely think, though, if something were to happen to Baker Mayfield, Austin Kendall is your backup quarterback.
Look, Josh, this is how I look at it. Is it a risk telling a kid that you're going to sit for a year and you have no chance of touching the field and he might get disgruntled and leave? Yes, but he's going to be more disgruntled if he loses another year of eligibility and he comes back next fall and doesn't win the starting quarter. That's when you lose him.
There's no question. I mean, you talk about the way they were going into next year, almost inevitably, if Austin Kendall didn't win that job, he was going to transfer. Kyler Murray, maybe. I mean, does he go through a second transfer? That seems unlikely. But maybe he just quits and focuses on baseball.
I think that's the likelihood. Yeah, I think that would be the most likely thing.
That's another thing to consider. But with this, you get that separation where, so if Kyler wins that job, you can say, you know what, Austin, maybe you can. Who knows? You may pitch him on. Well, he may leave. He may go pro in baseball. I mean, so you may still be a 2-year starter or whatever. So there are ways to do it. But obviously, if they're both juniors going into next year, whoever loses that job, you've got to think something's going to give.
Yeah, and it's quarterback. It's a delicate situation. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you get parents involved. You get a dad that gets things into a kid's head, or friends, or former coaches, or players, or whatever. And it's really easy to sit there knowing you're not playing and just daydream of how you get yourself into a better position, or you see a team lose a quarterback they didn't expect to lose. So it's going to be touch and go. I mean, you're always going to be worried about a quarterback transferring when he's not the starter. That's just the way football is now. So, I mean, that was really, I thought, one of the more interesting parts of the press conference is just that whole dynamic. And now you're heading into UTEP with a coach that's brand new. He kind of has had the questions, I guess, about, how difficult it's been or what. And Eddie, to me, I told him this yesterday when we talked, like, to us and the media, he pretty much seems like the guy he's been the last 2 years. You don't really notice any panic. I've said this many times. He's a guy that seems to be at ease when he deals with the media. He probably jokes around with us a little bit more than he ever did as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, probably. I would think so. He gets a little. I thought Wednesday's interview session, he was very muleshoe. I thought the accent came out a little bit more than it usually does.
He's starting to sound more like Baker.
Yeah,
have you noticed that?
A little bit. He also has this, and it's been talked about before, but this, I don't know if it's just kind of the way that Bob talks, and he always kind of ended his sentences kind of cut off almost. And I think Lincoln does that a little bit. But, I've been asked multiple times what the biggest difference in Lincoln Riley is in the last, 2 months since he took over and when he was the offensive coordinator. And it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't think he's changed that much at all. No. I think, what you see is what you get. And I think if you want to go further, that's why he's such a good recruiter, is because what you see is what you get.
Here's what it seems like to me. It seems like he's operated as he always has an offensive coordinator, yet he'll have things that he has to deal with now, like players that he has from Houston, and if their families are having trouble, and they have a fund that they're able to give money to the players to help out with emergencies and things like that. So, I'm sure he had to deal a little bit with that stuff, or just getting reports on that stuff. How's this guy doing? Probably bring those players into his office. Like Matt Romar is, his area got hit. His area was one of the later ones, right, to get hit. He's from
Port Arthur.
He's from
Port Arthur, yeah.
And they of all the pictures I saw on the internet, the one of Beaumont, the I-10, where there's literally white caps on the water going across the highway, that's in the general area of where Matt's from. So, that they got just bombarded with water. And I think that's one of the tricky parts, is because they're so far out there, people kind of, everybody's so focused on Houston, they've forgotten how much devastation there is east of Houston.
Yeah. Well, and here's one thing also, I skipped this, but a personnel matter from the press conference that we thought would happen, but it did, but Lincoln confirmed it during his press conference.
The other thing that we would announce is Austin Seibert will start at all three of the kicking positions. He'll kick off, kick field goals, and will punt. We'll see how that goes throughout the year. We've got some intriguing options behind him, but nobody's ready to take that job from him right now, and we're going to make somebody come take it. Like we said earlier, don't feel the need to just take one thing off of him just because. We feel like somebody's got to go take that job from him, and to that point, and right now that has not happened.
I don't know what I want more to happen. Tim Kish to sign a 5-star linebacker, or Austin Seibert to win the Lou Groza so all the haters can just go die.
I don't think he's going to win the Lou Groza.
Damn it. All right. What about the Ray Guy? Probably
well,
not.
he was a semifinalist last year for that.
For the Ray Guy?
Yeah.
I know he was on the Ray Guy watch list.
It just goes to show you that Reeves failed the Munchow test.
Well,
Whatever the Munchow test is, you couldn't pass it.
You talked to Jay Boulware a little bit just about the directional punting, and they want to stick with Seibert because he knows what he's doing.
They don't want to. Yeah,
by the way.
They don't. They don't want to get into a situation where they call a punt to the left side of the field, and you got a young kid that's not experienced. Maybe he rushes his kick and then he kicks it right.
Yeah,
and then there's no coverage. I mean, that's and my point. I think I said this on the podcast last week. So stop being a directional kicking team. If it means that you can kick field goals versus you can't kick field goals. By the way, and I did see this on the depth chart today. I actually texted Mike Houck at OU, the sports information director. There is a backup kicker, place kicker listed. It's Kyle Powell.
A transfer
or
from
Foul.
Kyle. He's a transfer from LSU. He was on the team last year.
I think it's Foe. It's Kyle Foe. I have to go back and look.
PFAU.
It's just like FOW. How you say it? Kyle Foe.
Kyle Foe.
PFAU. Yeah. And redshirt junior. He's 5'10", 190. He's kind of a skinny guy. So you do have an option. I don't know how good he is, but look, if you're missing 29-yard field goals against Ohio State again, you've got problems.
I keep saying it, but I think that Seibert is going to be okay. Like, I think there was a lot of mental bad juju last year in his brain. You get a clean slate. He was away from Norman. Maybe things will go right. He's not a bad kicker.
I am going to call a little bit of shenanigans on one depth chart thing here. I don't think Connor McGinnis is the holder.
Is that because you hate Heritage Hall?
No, I love Heritage Hall.
Okay.
I love your boys from Heritage Hall. I'm just saying I think there's someone else that could add something to special teams that might be the holder. And I won't say who that is. You can just guess.
Can he catch fly balls?
I'd say he could, yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe he swings things sometimes.
Can he hit a curveball?
I don't know about that. I don't.
That is to be debated.
So anyway, I'll leave it at that. But outside of that, guys, my general impressions about the depth chart were just when you look at, like, we talk about all the guys that are really good on this team. You talk about Baker Mayfield, Orlando Brown, Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo, Caleb Kelly, Stephen Parker, Jordan Thomas. I mean, you talk about all those guys, and we get used to talking about all these really good players that OU has, but then all of a sudden you're faced with a depth chart that shows you how you are top to bottom at every position. And the one overriding opinion I had after looking at this depth chart yesterday was, man, Oklahoma really, they're hurting at depth at several positions, like more than I kind of thought. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Is that because there were multiple names listed as backups at multiple positions,
yeah, I mean, like,
you think?
Curtis Bolton basically is the backup at all three linebacker positions. And
right.
If John Michael Terry is healthy, then he could be the backup at middle. But if he wasn't, then Curtis Bolton would be his backup too.
I see.
And not so much on the offensive line, but just the freshmen and the fact that, you look at the receivers and there's not, I mean, to have a freshman, a true freshman, make his way all the way up to the top of a depth chart, I'll go back and say it again. It's not good.
When I saw CeeDee Lamb's name on top, the one thing that I initially thought about was when Jeff Badette told us that he had caught more balls than any person in the receivers room in preseason camp.
That CeeDee did?
Yeah. I almost think that's why I've wrote it on the board a couple times. I put zero stock into this depth chart because I think that, there are some interesting points in it, but, a guy like, I'm looking at it right now and I'm looking for a name that I could point out. Like, I think that, Josh, you brought up a good point. Like, Carson Meyer as backup fullback is intriguing. That probably means that Jeremiah Hall is going to redshirt this season. I think that, Kenneth Mann is a name that nobody ever talks about, but Neville Gallimore brought him up yesterday. He said he's really excited to see, or on, Wednesday.
Just answer me this question. Other than the quarterback position with Parnell Motley and Jordan Parker, What other position do you see that has a number one? Running backs really don't count. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know that's a cop-out, but name me another position where your 1 and your 2 are almost interchangeable.
You said we can't name offensive line?
Guard.
Yeah, I was going to say guard.
Well, yeah, okay, so there's a second one with Cody Ford
but,
and Ben
other than
Powers.
that, your point stands.
I could I don't know if I would feel confident about it, but I think I could make the argument at nose guard with Romar and Overton.
No, you can't. No.
Not at all?
No.
I don't think that Overton, I mean,
I think
obviously we didn't see him a lot.
They have to list Dylan Fa'amato just because Overton isn't that guy to where he's just that dominant as the 2.
What about...
And I haven't heard anything that's all that great about Fa'amato, Tao, or whatever his name is.
Oh, it was very suspicious that Devonta Lampkin's name was left off. What about Jack? Can Mark Jackson? I guess we just haven't seen him.
Mark Jackson and Obo?
Yeah.
Obo's head and shoulders above.
I'm not saying that they're close to being the same player.
They're not interchangeable. That was the thing.
Well, then...
Well, but
two-
interchangeable can be good and bad.
Yeah.
That may mean your starter's not very
I mean,
good.
the
Obo's
inside
really
linebackers
good,
might
so-
be interchangeable. Yeah, because Kenneth Murray's the true freshman
Right.
and the guy behind him.
So this team's going to win 4 or 5 games, you think?
That's not what I'm saying. By the way, I kept getting asked the question, where is Addison Gums on this thing? He's not that far behind. I mean, it's just...
Don't read the depth chart. That's my number one rule for the rest of the season. Don't read the depth chart.
Well, it's the only thing that we have to go on. I mean...
What did you guys... I'm sorry.
No, I just say one thing real quick. I mean, it almost started a riot at the press conference from one Dean Blevins because there was not a depth chart release.
Why is there no depth chart? Apparently this is the first time in the modern era here at OU there hasn't been one.
He declared it was the first time in the modern era that the no depth chart was
Lincoln
released.
should have said, well, you have to show up more than once a month to get a depth chart. Sorry, Dean.
Dean, no, that's not fair. Dean shows up to practices more than just about anybody else in TV.
That could be debated.
But that again goes back to Josh's argument about interchangeable. If TV people don't usually show up very often, when one shows up half the time, that's remarkable.
Right.
Well, what I thought was interesting, guys, and you guys know, I mean, I've always been right there with Eddie. Depth charts don't mean anything. Half the time they're to send a message. And I understand all that. But I thought Riley was really interesting, again, to go back to what you posted, Carey, from your meeting with him yesterday, where he said we wanted to put something out that really meant something and it really wasn't like either he's just willfully lying about it and being deceptive, or they really put some thought into, okay, we don't want to make this just something so we could say we put out a depth chart.
I don't think that there's any doubt that it was more of a, you've done really well. This is a reward for what you did during the summer and preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. I don't think that Lincoln is screwing with people. From what I gather from him, he will just tell you to your face, no, I'm not going to talk to you about that, instead of lie to you and try and dupe you on something. Like, he's just done that so many times. He's done it with me, with Kyler Murray questions. He did it. There's been multiple times where he's just like, I can't talk about that. I'm really sorry, but I just can't discuss it. And he'll say, I don't want to, and he's trying to be nice and diplomatic about it, but he'll say, look, there are some things that if I talk about it gives us a strategic disadvantage, so I'm not going to talk about that. So, and I believe he's earnest when he says that stuff and honest.
And as a media guy, I love that. I think I get it. I mean, we're not idiots. I know we'd love to have all the news, but I certainly understand the coach that doesn't want to hurt his team's chances.
By the way, talking about things that are difficult, I'm gonna line all this out for you. But the tailgating thing, it was really interesting because it came out, Eddie, was it Wednesday morning? Tuesday morning?
Tuesday morning, yeah.
Tuesday morning it came out, and credit to the OU Daily, the student newspaper. They were the ones that first learned that the university was not going to allow tailgating on Lindsay Street. And I knew as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, the shit is going to hit the fan today. And so I didn't just retweet it, but I quote tweeted it. And then because the athletics department underneath their article said, this is a university matter decision or something like that. And I thought right then, oh, athletics is getting killed right now because people think that they did it because of this tailgating guys thing. What?
Do you want what?
Say what you're going to say.
It's just a war on the Greek fraternities and sororities that David Boren has had for a long time.
Oh, it goes back to my days.
It's complete bullshit is what it is. And I'm glad that
I'm going to say I'm right there with you.
I'm glad that it got to be as big of a deal as it was, because they should deserve all the fire and fury that they can, because it's just complete bullshit. The steps that they have taken to pretty much outlaw what I would call a fun atmosphere. I know that there's probably people that wouldn't agree with that, but it's incredible.
Here, you know what? I would say it's not so much about even an assault on fraternities and sororities and fun. It is more likely that David Boren wants everyone to be able to see his new residential colleges without people standing in front of it. Like, I think it could be that petty.
I could see that. And, I think that it was one of those situations that those buildings probably shouldn't even been built in the first place.
There's a lot of controversy.
So I think it kind of goes into that. For all the reasons that people give David Boren grief, he just reinforced all those opinions by doing something.
And this happens. I mean, like I said, this has been happening since I was in school. I mean, there was an incident. I can't remember what house it was. It might have been the Delt house. But there was a flagpole that was knocked down, and it came down on a kid's head and killed him. And it was during a party. And after that, all alcohol, this would have been in 94, 5, something like that. Like, all alcohol was banned from the Greek system outright. Like, houses could not have alcohol. And I think that still has stuck to this day, right?
Well, I mean, it didn't go dry until 2000, the year before I got there, so 2005. Okay. So I
just remember it was
they brought it back at some point because they had whole parties.
It was very SAE. I mean, like, just swift justice. The Greek system is embarrassing this university, and I'm gonna lay the smack down. And that happens like every 5 years, it seems like it.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those situations too that it ruins it for everybody else because of, one screw up. But there weren't any screw ups. I mean, there were. I had talked. Okay, and going back to let's go back to the timeline of this all and how it all went down. So this comes out, and I had tweeted out when I saw that OU the athletics department had commented on it. I said it was one of those stupid, smart ass tweets like. When shit's about to hit the fan, but you want people to know it wasn't your fault. And I was like, then all this tailgating guy stuff started because they sent out this map. And this map had a little green area where you could tailgate right next to the stadium. And I'd heard about this tailgating guys thing, and I totally forgot about it. So I thought in my mind, like, oh, well, they're taking away Lindsay, but this spot's really nice. Like, it's right next to the stadium. And then people started contacting me immediately, like, you can't tailgate there. You have to pay. It's that tailgate guy stuff. And so I thought, oh, that is bullshit. Like, that's totally. And so then I did like a double tweet or a tweet with two pics. Like, I tweeted the new map, and then I tweeted, the area with the circle around it. And I said, how are you going to tell people that it's a university matter when just around the corner you have this new tailgate? I was like, it was one of those things, like, I knew when I sent that I was going to hear from the administration, and immediately I heard from the administration. And so they started talking to me, and everybody's afraid, like, in the athletics department, because they don't want to piss off Boren. Like, I think I've been in the middle of that before. It's not fun. When the whole, Josh, you remember, Eddie was there at Lawton, and RJ was working for us, and Boren basically pulled our article out of his pocket and, what did he do? Put it like up in your face and something
say,
like
this
that.
is not true. He was so mad.
We just dusted our shoulder off.
I think he's still mad.
Said, who are you? Who are you?
No, you didn't. So, I mean, I saw it, and like, the athletics department does not want to piss off Boren because he is the all powerful. He does whatever he wants. He can shut down tailgate. So everybody in the athletics department was like, look, this is not our doing. This is not our doing. We're trying to get to the bottom of it and find out who is responsible for this and why it was done. And so later on that day, all this stuff is going down, and I'm told, okay, Public Affairs is going to send out a release on this. And so I contacted them. I said, hey, I need a release. I never got any kind of release. And the thing that came out said, well, there's concerns about security in front of student housing, and we're worried about the grass. And basically saying we try not to have alcohol parties or something in front of student housing. It's like it's a long-standing policy or whatever. It was bullshit. And the fact was, when you look at that map, there was nowhere to tailgate. It was just insane. And I kept thinking to myself, like, how long is it going to take for Bourne to realize what he's done? That was all I thought.
Sometimes I feel like decisions are made out of there that are not thought through, and that they think that I think also the real kicker of this whole thing was the fact that they tried to go almost under the rug on everybody.
Yeah, like they waited till Wednesday,
and this was never like published out. Like how I saw about
Joe Castiglione, when the student paper printed, Joe Castiglione had no idea that the tailgating rules had been changed.
Right.
They didn't even bother to tell him when it affected him more than anyone.
There was reason to have anger, and I'm glad that, they obviously heard about it and were able to get it, I guess, kind of remedied. I don't know if it's the best option that they have, but they at least have opened up some spots that people can tailgate.
I thought it was fair. I mean, you're basically, you don't have the prime location that you had, but you still can, if you get there early enough, you can still sit there and revel in front of the stadium, and see the stadium, all that stuff. Recruits can see, recruits are able to see if you are, what your game day atmosphere is like still.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest. There was a lot of people that were worried about that, about recruits coming in and not seeing the shenanigans that were happening across the street from the stadium. It'll be interesting to see how the atmosphere is, I don't know, changed would be the right word, but I do think that, it's going to be different for sure.
Well, see, okay, so everything that I've told you about the athletic department not wanting to piss off David Bourne or the university over this, like, no one would go on record and talk about this because they're just like, just let it play out. Let's see what happens. We're gathering information, but nobody wanted to go on record, and they don't want to go on record because they don't want something that Bourne's going to read and maybe get upset about it. But you know what? Lincoln Riley is a brand new coach. This is one of those things that I think he should be able to comment on. Bob Stoops might have not commented on it at all. He might have looked at me and said, next question, or, I'm not interested in talking about that. But I thought I'd take a shot, and I asked Lincoln Riley just about the whole tailgating thing.
How much do you think about game day environments and with recruits coming in and maybe just your guys just, as kind of fuel a little bit? I mean, were you concerned at all when you heard about the tailgating stuff and that people were disappointed or might be upset and not come to games?
That's a dangerous question to answer. I don't. If I was a lot of places, I would worry about it, and here I don't worry about it, and thankful that I don't. That we have the kind of history with our fans, and you know what you're going to get as far as game day and the caliber of game day you're going to get here. So, of course, I always want everything to be perfect for our fans. They do a great job for us, and I know every recruit that comes in here this year is going to be blown away.
So, I say crisis averted. I don't think there's anything that this is going to linger or hurt Oklahoma. I think maybe you're going to have some people that still want to outlive this, live out this conspiracy theory about, the tailgate company or whatever, the glamping company.
I honestly believe the people that will still bitch and complain about it are the people that sit at home and then bitch and complain about the Lloyd Noble Center capacity that don't go to games. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would put my money that most people that are sitting on Twitter or online complaining about it aren't people that usually go to games anyway.
No. Yeah, and I think that, there probably are some that were definitely affected by it, but, it's going to be interesting to just see how it all plays out, because I think that you're going to have to change you're gonna have to change your routine, but it shouldn't change your routine, if you will.
Well, see, and here's the thing about it. Like, Josh, you've been around a lot.
If you're blackout, it doesn't matter anyways where you are.
Tailgating has not always been a big deal at OU. It's something that's really came about because once O'Connell's got moved and demolished, like that was where kind of the hangout was. And then Campus Corner started, and that's a big deal. Everybody goes over there. Tailgating was big for some people, but let's face it, it wasn't the Grove, in Oxford. It wasn't LSU. It wasn't even Texas A&M. I mean, OU doesn't. They have a nice tailgating scene. Stillwater has a better tailgating scene. It's just not. It's not something that OU's really known for.
I think that's right. I mean, you brought up Stillwater. I've been up there for tailgates before, and it's always felt a lot more organized. What I've always thought was kind of interesting about Norman was how many, with housing being so close to the stadium, there was always a lot of like fan groups that would have like they rented a house for the year. They'd owned a house that you could, that they threw parties out on game days and that kind of stuff. Like I see a lot of that at OU. But you're right, tailgating. I mean, because frankly, even though they've taken away a lot of it, it's not like there was ever a big area to do it.
There are two people I grew up with in Duncan, and their families also own houses in Norman just to hang out at. Like they don't even rent them out. Like they just have another house in Norman, and that's something that's been taken over Norman over the last 5-10 years. Like rich people will just buy houses on Lahoma or Chautauqua, Parsons, whatever, just to have a house, a second house to use for game day weekends because they have that much money. Must be nice.
I knew a lot of people that bought houses down there, but they also had their kids live there while they were in school.
Yeah.
But they bought it for that reason.
Well, that's what these people from Duncan
And you can walk to the stadium. That's one of the nice perks of having a stadium in the middle of campus.
Yeah. But it's Oklahoma. It's just that way. It's not and look, like when you go to Kansas State, that's all they do. They've been doing that since the 90s. Like because their stadium is in a big concrete parking lot, and all those people were like Chiefs fans. So their game day was patterned after the NFL.
Tailgating is more of an emphasis at programs that historically have been shitty. I think that's an easy way to put it.
Yeah. Because
people worry more about the tailgate.
I didn't see a lot of tailgating at Florida State.
Florida State is just you can drink at fraternity houses, so you don't have a need to quote unquote get a tent or anything like that.
I'm trying to think like Tennessee. I didn't see, it's all in mountains and stuff, so I didn't see a whole lot of tailgating there.
There was a lot of tailgating in the parking garage and stuff, like people chilling outside of that.
But I mean, outside around the stadium, people were just waiting for that stupid ass walk. Sucked. It was terrible.
The walk to mediocrity.
Well, and you guys talked about it, like when you talk about the great, places for tailgating, LSU. I mean, I think we have so many young listeners to our podcast. They don't understand that for a long time LSU was nobody. I mean, they were okay. They weren't special. They weren't what they are now. And Ole Miss, who was great in the 50s and 60s, but was largely nothing beyond that. Until Hugh Freeze.
Well, Eli Manning gave him a little bit of a resurgence with David Cutcliffe.
Sure. But you don't hear people talk about Alabama's tailgating. Like that's, obviously they tailgate, but that's not like. I think Eddie brings up a good point. You've got to drink away your sorrows when you know you're about to go in the stadium and get your head kicked in.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess maybe I know this is not true, but you could almost kind of make up the story that tailgating was invented during the John Blake era. And it really wasn't, because O'Connell's was still around. But that was a science, man. O'Connell's back in the day.
Yeah, I remember it.
Like, they had just beer troughs.
Yeah.
That was all, like, you'd walk outside of the stadium and it was just beer troughs.
Oh, I think I've said this on the podcast before, but growing up, until about the age of 12 or 13, I always wondered where my dad was going at halftime and why I couldn't go.
All right, something else I want to talk about that's going to happen Saturday. Lincoln Riley is going to coach his first game. But Bob Stoops is going to watch his first game. And the question was asked yesterday, hey, Lincoln, what's Bob going to do Saturday?
Have you talked to Bob this week, or you know where he'll be Saturday?
I've got an idea, but I'll let him spring that on you guys. Yeah, I've talked to him. Yeah, we talk a decent amount.
See, the way he said that, and I've heard this is a possibility that exists, I'll let him spring that on you. I think Bob Stoops might be in the press box Saturday.
If he is, you need to let him live blog a quarter on the
instant analysis.
On the instant analysis. Yeah, let Bob Stoops do it.
I think Bob Stoops is going to have a media job this year.
With OU?
I won't say.
That would be interesting.
If he live blogs, will he type certainly?
Or in a good way?
I say this with certainty. Bob Stoops does not know his home row on the computer or on the keyboard.
You think he doesn't know? You think he knows what QWERTY stands for?
No, he is a poke. He's a poking SOB, just
hunting
and pecking
with those pinkies.
That could be hard. Could be hard. A might not be used a lot. It'll be certainly.
Did you take typing?
Yeah.
Growing up?
Oh, yeah.
How many words a minute can you type?
Like 120.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm a really good typer.
You're going to start transcribing a lot moving forward.
I actually can transcribe pretty quickly, but I have to always go back.
Right.
It's like something between listening and transcribing, so.
That's why I have this baby. It's got the skip back button on it.
Yeah, go back, what, half a second or something?
It goes like 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
So the pause and the skip back button work really well. It's an art. You learn it. It sucks. Transcribing is the bane of existence.
Yes.
But you have to do it so you can write stories. So.
I had 2 incoming freshman stories that were lost to the timing of transcription this summer. So that's that happens, people. They are now transcribed, but they feel so dated. I don't think there's any point in writing them.
Do you want to break some OU football team news? Just got an email about.
Hold on. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
For the first time, the University of Oklahoma will offer a Spanish audio broadcast of its football games for an entire season. Veteran Spanish broadcasters Enrique Vasquez and Alex Parra will team up to call OU's 2017 game.
Man, I've always thought about getting into Rosetta Stone. I would learn Spanish just to do sideline reporting on the Spanish broadcast.
Carey, I think you should grow out a mustache if you're going to do the sideline reporting for some reason I need you in a mustache to do Spanish audio.
Like with a velvet sports coat, like a crimson velvet sports coat.
I feel like your dislike of mariachi bands would prevent you from ever being a part of the Spanish broadcast at OU.
I hate mariachi bands so much. Whenever we go to San Antonio, I've embarrassed myself and I don't care. It's kind of like most of my life.
You treat mariachi bands like I treat mascots.
Yes, exactly. That's a good comparison. But yeah, if I'm on the Riverwalk in San Antonio and I'm eating at one of those restaurants and they have a mariachi band and they try and stop, just keep on moving, pal. Get that horn out of my damn ear. Okay, game day coming up Saturday. Eddie and I got to sample some of the new Levy restaurant offerings. I've got some of them right in front of me here. A lot of people were fans of the Baked Bear ice cream offerings, which it is kind of funny that OU has a vendor named after a stoned bear, because it's obvious those people are smoking a lot of weed with the stuff that they're coming up with.
I think it comes out of Colorado, so put 2 and 2 together.
Actually, it doesn't.
Baked Bear?
The company?
Yeah.
Okay, well maybe they're headquartered out of there, but I know the franchise. I found out who the franchisee was this week. It's somebody that I work with.
Really?
Yes. Well, they're brother-in-law. But I didn't have that. Eddie and I both loved. They have like a whipped cookie dough. It's like eating a cloud of cookie dough.
It's amazing.
It was the Frank's Red Hot fries were fantastic. Their fries are really, really good. See, there's my stupid computer. I just now got the Spanish broadcast. Look, I'm of this opinion. Just like if you're a grown man, you shouldn't be wearing a jersey to a game. If you're a grown man, you should not be carrying around a turkey leg. They have the Swadley's turkey leg. Let children do that. Why do you disagree? It's disgusting.
I think you can do both.
I would massacre a turkey leg anytime, any place. There's zero shame.
They should have
I'm that guy in the midway at the fair.
They should have a turkey leg room where you go in there and you eat it in shame with all the other grown men who want to eat turkey legs.
Half and have a turkey leg room and a smoking room.
Yes. Like everybody just faces the wall and scarfs down their turkey leg.
I think a turkey leg is delicious.
I thought the Sooner dog was really good, kind of jalapenos and really good cheese, and they put like crispy fried onions on top of it. But it's massive. It's so big. I wasn't a fan of the chicken fried burger. I don't know if you tried that or not.
I think I had a bite of it.
Some people liked it. I thought the Sooner nachos were just okay. I mean, there wasn't anything really special about them. I mean, they were crispy, and the cheese wasn't anything special. So I'm not trying a deep fried Twinkie. I'm just not doing it. Now the watermelon pie is fantastic. It's like eating summer. A cloud of summer.
You want to hear my hot take on the food?
Sure.
I don't go to football games to stand in concession lines.
But they have the ones facing the field now. And they have TVs right there so you don't miss any action.
This might go back into my tailgating philosophy, but usually I wouldn't be sober enough to stand in a line. Is that easier to said?
Yeah. Do you remember any of the football games from when you were in college?
No, I went for like a half and then went to the bar. I literally...
then you just DVR'd it and watched it later when you sobered up?
Didn't even watch them. I mean, they won by 50. We knew what happened.
What about when Sam was playing?
Oh, no, I usually...
Hey, good. So you just lied to Sam every time you'd see him?
He was out of the game by the end of the third quarter. And I was already at the pub. I
bet you were blacked out when they beat Washington that one year in 2008.
Or
were you working with school then?
No. We watched it somewhere, I'm sure. Somebody's house.
I like that Eddie's decision lies between whether he was blackout drunk or working for the university.
Yeah, you don't drink on days that you work, so.
No, I just love that there's no middle ground between those two arenas.
Here's
one or the other.
Josh, this is what I really wonder. Like, if Eddie did not go into journalism, I have no idea how you would keep a job anywhere else. But if you worked a regular job, Eddie, like, what would you be doing on game days? Would you still be the guy that was getting, laying in the gutter?
Oh yeah.
After games were over there on Lindsay?
I probably wouldn't be laying in a gutter, but I would be in a gutter somewhere. For sure.
You'd probably have like a group of buddies that were just like you, that were like golfing buddies, and you'd all have season tickets together.
Yeah, maybe.
And everyone in your section would hate you.
No, everybody in our section would love us, and we would decide on who we hated. Probably the people that yelled to sit down.
How many games had you been kicked out of in your life? Any?
I don't think I have.
It's got to be hard to get kicked out of a game from the student section.
Yeah. Like you have to probably be like smoking a joint or something in the stadium.
See, that was the thing. Like, I never sat in the student section my entire life. My best friend had 50-yard line tickets, 11th row, so we'd always sit there.
I sometimes would sit with my parents, but most of the time we would sit in the student section just because, A, we had seats saved, and B, like I said earlier, we wouldn't stay very long.
I wouldn't like you. I mean, I'm too serious. I was too serious at games. I didn't drink. I didn't want to be drunk during the game.
Well, that's just
because you couldn't concentrate as well. I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to go to a watch party when you had chicks talking about stuff besides football. I would go lock myself in somebody's room and watch it.
That's odd.
I really don't think it is.
I'm with Eddie on this one. That's kind of weird. And
the both of you.
I'm as football junkie as it comes.
All right, football junkie Josh. Anything to look out for with this first game in recruiting? I imagine just a lot of in-state kids, current commits, the Redmonds and the Walkers and those guys probably stopping in.
Yeah, there's two official visitors this weekend. Bray Walker, Oklahoma's highest rated commitment. He'll be there for his official. He'll be there obviously the same weekend as Brian Asamoah, the linebacker from Ohio that came to OU's barbecue. We've talked about him for the last month or so on the pod. A guy that I have every indication that this will go well for Oklahoma this weekend. I don't know if he will announce it while he's on campus. I don't know if he'll wait and go home. But I would be very surprised if this time next week we're not talking about him as a member of Oklahoma's class. So I think Oklahoma, and it's very interesting to see because it was such a big deal for him to have his parents involved in this, and they wanted to see it kind of get their own feel for Norman. Well, for Bray Walker and his family, who, I'm sure Bray will be joined by his dad, probably his mom, they're kind of at everything. And almost every time I hear or talk to a parent, that was at an OU event, they talk about being around the Walkers and talking to Mr. Walker and talking to Mrs. Walker. And I can't think that's coincidental. Like, I've got to wonder if OU said, hey, Bray, we'd love to have you in this weekend, and let his family be around the Asamoahs a little bit and maybe help sell them on the idea of Oklahoma.
Okay, so those are the only two official visitors then, Bray Walker and Brian Asamoah.
Sure. There'll be unofficials. Probably the most notable is Trajan Bridges, the Rivals 100 wide receiver in 2019. He's been talking for a while about being really big on Oklahoma. A lot of people think a decision could be imminent from him. So he's another guy I would definitely have an eye on this weekend. That shouldn't surprise anybody if that happens. But Oklahoma could have a very good recruiting weekend in spite of not having a lot of uncommitted guys on campus.
And then you expect most of the in-state kids to be here?
Sure. You're going to have the Jalen Redmonds. Jalen will be interesting. I expect him. He plays a Friday night game in Tulsa, so we'll kind of have to see how that goes. But, yeah, a lot of the local guys, the names are familiar. Maybe one that is interesting is Derrick Shaw from Broken Arrow, the defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's going to come in. He'll be on campus. Really showed well in that game against Union last Saturday that Eddie was at. Eddie can certainly speak to how good he was, but he's a three technique guy. I think OU is still. I expect OU to take another interior defensive lineman. I don't know that they've committed to who that guy will be yet. And with Trevor Trout announcing a top 6 that didn't include Oklahoma, I think it's pretty clear that he and OU are moving in different directions. Everybody will get up in arms about that, but I think that's more OU's choice than his. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Shaw. I don't think he's a guy that's going to pick up an offer this weekend, but they'll continue to watch him and evaluate him. And I think really this weekend it's more of a chance to get a feel for him because they don't really know the kid that well.
He was fantastic last Saturday.
And yeah, and Josh Shaw was a guy that his performance just on that broadcast kind of elevated their interest a little bit, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That is, I had more than one person say within, 48 hours, there was some contact of how big is this kid? What's he look like? Is he always that good? That kind of thing. So there were a lot of people, not just OU. I heard talk that Oklahoma State has reached out to him, Kansas State's reached out to him. His notoriety went up considerably following that game, and that's what you get when you can put a big performance against, a big-time team like Union.
Josh is going to be too humble to say it, but he was a guy that he jumped off the page when we saw him during the spring. He was a guy that you thought, would have a very good opportunity to kind of showcase himself over his senior season, and he obviously started in the right way on last Saturday.
Oh, sure. He's a guy. If he's 6'3", Eddie, he's got 40 offers right now. He's about 6'1.5", maybe 6'1". He's undersized. There's just no two ways about that. But guys that even can carry 285, they don't move like him.
Right.
I mean, people don't realize he's related to Jamal Shaw, the running back that was so good at Broken Arrow that's now at Abilene Christian. So you're talking about a guy that has good genetics, good athletic genetics. So it's not coincidental that he is a very good, like he can move, but he's doing it at such a big size that I just felt like eventually people were going to take notice of him, and I think that's what's starting to happen.
Let me ask you guys, the Owasso win over Jenks. I mean, I watched that on television. It was domination. And it really was more than just Josh Proctor. He obviously had the play of the game with the interception return for a 100-yard touchdown. But, before that interception, actually Jenks was kind of picking on him a little bit down the middle of the field. And then he came up with, I guess they were jawing back and forth because they had completed a couple passes on him, and that's kind of what led to him, really charging at that ball and tipping it to himself. But, guys, tell me about what you saw, or heard or highlights or whatever from that Owasso game. Who really started to? I mean, there's some players I got to think that they're starting to gain a little bit of juice in the recruiting game based off that performance.
Well, and I guess we all should be very modest because we picked that game to go exactly that way last week, right?
My apologies, Rams fans. I was completely wrong.
We didn't know that Jenks was
I
terrible.
thought it would be a good game, but I didn't see that coming.
I don't know.
But anyway,
let's
to your point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cortrey Alexander is the kid that I think is probably the most interesting. It's Alexander, right? I always remember the Cortrey part, but anyway, Trey. The defensive lineman from Owasso. I think he's a guy that I had seen him on tape and kind of liked him, and then had a chance to see him in person at OU's camp this summer, their elite camp. Now, with all that happened that day, I didn't really get a chance to watch him that closely. For those that don't remember, that was the day Bob Stoops resigned. So we had our phones were ringing. We didn't get to watch everything as closely as we would have liked. But he definitely was a guy that you're like, wow, physically, he looks great. But I thought he had a nice game against Jenks for what I saw. I didn't get to watch it live. That was obviously kind of right as weather was coming down on Houston, so there were some other things going on with me. But he's a guy that I think will pick up some attention. Another guy from Owasso that I know several coaching staffs that hit Oklahoma a lot are really high on is Jason Bell, their offensive lineman. Owasso's got a good track record at that position going back, to Gavin Howard, Brandon Webb that went to Oklahoma State. I mean, they've produced good offensive linemen. So I think he'll pick up a lot of notoriety. And obviously, kind of like what we just said with B.A. and Derrick Shaw on an individual level, when you do that to a team like Jenks, what Owasso did, you are going to build notoriety for your entire team. So it wouldn't shock me if a guy like Wayne Jones, who's committed to Kansas State, if some other schools don't take a look at him as well.
All right. Anything else you want to throw out there recruiting-wise, Josh, before we start wrapping this thing up?
No, it's really – I think a lot of people are who's the next commitment going to be? And I think, like I said, I think Brian Asamoah is definitely the way to look right now. I thought it was interesting. Adam Gorney had some news. It feels like more and more Raymond Scott, the Rivals 250 linebacker from California that is a USC commitment, he seems to be trending toward Oklahoma a little bit right now. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. He said OU is the one school he is certain he will take another an official visit to other than USC. So I think Oklahoma, it's kind of a rare situation that I think they could flip a USC guy. I'm not sure how sold USC is on him. So I think a guy that's really a very nice fit for Oklahoma could fall into OU's lap. And aside from that, I guess just this weekend, I'm going to have a chance to see, 5 Oklahoma offers and 2 OU commitments Thursday night and Friday night. Friday night, really excited. Get to see Jace McClellan and Jeffrey Carter for the first time. So that I'm looking forward to seeing we'll take a stab at it. I'm going to research it before I interview these guys, but Alito, we'll go with that for now.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
Okay, we'll see.
Every time we think that, though,
It's wrong.
yeah. Okay, I think it has come time for everybody's favorite portion of the program. Josh, you with us?
I am here.
I'm talking about, of course, well, I got just way too loud there. I'm talking about, of course, shut up. Thank you. The ratings and reviews from iTunes. We're up to 97 now, which is unbelievable that you people would take the time out to do this. We appreciate it. And I got to say, it's kind of become a pattern where we're not getting like horrible 1-star reviews for people to try to put funny stuff up, but mainly like 4 out of 5 reviews. There were a couple of troubling reviews I did see this week. One from, I've never known how to say this guy's name on the board. Scasting? Josh, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly who you're talking about. And I've always said Scasting, but it could be anything.
He says, 5-star review. Eddie, remember, before I read this review, that you are not allowed to rip on OU fans or call them losers. Actually, rip on them. You're not allowed to call OU fans losers. Are we agreed on this?
They are what they are.
He didn't call anyone a loser yet. Let the record show. Looks like you ran with my criticism, and I appreciate it, guys. Eddie has acted more professional since the Boomer 18 incident. He's less of a troll, and I'm sure begrudgingly acting more like an actual media member. Man, I'm glad you guys finally had a talk with him. There you go. It's never going to end, is it?
I remember my time when I actually went to OU.
Moving on. See you Sooners. Great podcast. I think Josh talks too much, though. Needs less recruiting talk, more Eddie and Carey funny stories. I think what we're learning here is that maybe we shouldn't listen to anything anybody says.
I didn't to begin with, so.
Big Gat. I don't know if that's a play on Big Cat from Barstool Sports. I don't understand this review at all. Eddie Ratto fucks.
All right, I like that.
I'm going to bleep that. What is that even? That just confirms that you have sex?
No, it means that I'm a cool person.
You youngsters, I don't understand some of the stuff you do.
That might be the nicest thing someone's ever said about me.
Short and sweet was that review. By the way, the Scasting review was titled, "Thank You for Involving Josh More." So it's funny, Josh, there's back-to-back reviews. One celebrating you, one hating on you. They're both
Do you know that
they're both 5 stars, so that's all I care about. Everyone hates themselves. Everyone hates listening to themselves. Okay, Wizots. Love, not like. 5 stars. These guys are great. Whether the discussion is current players, recruiting, general football, or Eddie's contrarian views. A fan, Eddie. You will be thoroughly entertained and educated about OU football. Warning, sometimes it becomes a like festival, using the word like, well, like teenage girls, but this like gets me like cracking up like even more. Listen to one podcast and you'll become addicted. Like, thank you. This one coming from Barry Switzer, apparently. Apparently they got the name first. The gods of CFB journalism. Eddie just perked up over there. I think you might listen to his first review. Their skills are impetuous. Their style is impregnable. I listen to these gents every day and always get my fill of recruiting news and insight into what's going on behind the scenes in OU football. I love when they go down the rabbit hole on random topics, as all 3 of them have really important points. Wow. That being said, I wish they would censor themselves less and not tease about topics they can't cover because of their connection to the OU program. I don't know that we do that. Also, is it just me, or did everyone else think that Curtis Fitzpatrick and Carey Murdoch were the same person? Mind blown on that one. All in all, keep up the great work, fellas. I would like to see more athletic head discussion. Good job, and keep up the great work, fellas. Eddie, do you approve of that one? Are you just ignoring this segment every time we do it?
Kind of, yeah.
Except when someone says Eddie Ratto bleeps.
Yeah, that gets my attention.
Okay, let's go to the final one. This is posted by TRAV. Thanks for keeping me adequately informed. A sleep-deprived audiophile and his sidekick, a Twitter bully friend of Sam Bradford, with a soon-to-be diseased liver, attempt to lead a Sooner-centric discussion via Skype with a 3-year-old and her dad.
That's actually pretty good.
That's the most perfect breakdown I've ever heard.
Congratulations, Trav. That is a fantastic review, or TRAV. I don't know if you're like DRMN or whatever. DRAM, DRAM. Is it DRAM or is it DRAM?
I have no idea.
Is that the guy that does broccoli?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I have no idea.
All right. My unhip co-stars, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to do it for this time on the Unofficial 40. Looking forward to UTEP. We'll be back next week after the Miners. By the way, okay, I'll throw this out there, guys. How you don't have to give a score. You can if you want. How many points does OU win by Saturday? The spread, I think, has gone down. It went down to 43 this morning from 45. I don't think they cover.
Final score, 66-9.
Wow, 66 points?
Yes, 66-9.
With these receivers.
I could catch balls against UTEP. UTEP is terrible. I think the preseason CBS Sports line has them like 131st.
Wow. Josh?
Well, you guys talked about Lincoln Riley and kind of his differences. Did it stick out to anybody, the Oboe comment about we want a shutout? Do you feel like that would have happened under Bob? That was so much more like, and it wasn't a shot at UTEP. It was just, I don't know, like I feel like that was I'm still not used to guys saying things like that, I guess.
Well, I think he was saying that they always want a shutout every time they go on the field.
Yeah. I don't know, like something about it just caught my ear funny, but that's another point altogether. I see something like maybe 52-17, something like that, 52-14. I think Oklahoma really, they're a lot better than UTEP. I will say Lincoln Riley's dead on. The guard that he loves from UTEP, the Hernandez kid, he's really good. So not that anyone's going to care except for me, but he's a good player. But UTEP just does not have the pieces to even go a quarter with Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma jumps on them early, maybe scores their first 2 or 3 drives, and it's really over. But I think you're looking at, like I said, 45, 52-14, something like that. They might just cover, but I would probably be on your side, Eddie, or Carey. I don't think they will.
OU needs to have more touchdowns than UTEP has first downs. That would I consider that dominant, a successful game.
Does Kyler Murray do anything but just play backup quarterback in this game?
Not a chance.
No special formations with Kyler Murray.
I wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't want Ohio State preparing for something, maybe? Having to spend some extra practice time working on stuff?
No. I don't think so.
I would be willing to bet if he does line up somewhere other than quarterback, you see nothing like it against Ohio State. Just a complete dummy fake.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at this. And they may not even throw in the ball or hand in the ball or, wherever he may be aligned, it may just be to make Ohio State look at it.
Right.
I don't know, though, guys. Lincoln Riley, he doesn't strike me as a guy that runs out of offense.
Yeah, that's true.
He likes putting fakes in. He likes doing trick plays. I could see him putting stuff in just to screw with Ohio State. Maybe it's a backwards pass to Kyler Murray, who's in the slot.
Oh, I definitely think that there will be some type of misdirection type thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to just line up and run, your straight vanilla offense, because I don't think there is a vanilla offense in what Lincoln Riley does, if that makes sense.
I would say if you see no Wildcat or no Kyler Murray short yardage stuff, then that definitely means they're doing that next week. But if you see him like split out and all kinds of just exotic stuff, I think it's Lincoln Riley just screwing with Ohio State.
Be a lot of people watching the game, I'm sure, tonight. Ohio State, thinking of them.
I'm definitely gonna. I'm more along with Josh. For some reason, it's hard for me to get to 50 with this team and their first time out. Just because I think they're going to run the ball a lot. They're not going to want to have a 4-hour game, and they want to find out what they have at running back. But I mean, you need to throw the ball too. But I see more like a 49-14 type game.
If they can only beat UTEP by 35,
49-10.
I'm publicly calling for the firing of the offensive coordinator.
No,
Wait,
you're
what?
not.
I'm just kidding.
All right. I don't think you had a winning horrible moment today, Eddie.
It's only Thursday. We're not through the entire week yet.
It's been a long week. This has been our own trip. Like, fall camp was.
It was a long one.
It was long.
It was long.
But like when you get into the season, you forget just how ridiculous it is. That Monday is just insane.
Mondays do suck around here, but it's the better. It's the better of two options of not having anything going on. So.
Yeah, the Monday after Ohio State's going to be the worst.
Yeah, after traveling back. This Monday might kind of suck just because everybody else will be off.
Yeah, I get sick of people talking about 3-day weekend.
Labor Day.
Not for us. Sorry.
But next week will be a lot of fun, I also think.
I'm looking forward to it.
So there's a trade-off.
All right, Josh, thanks so much, man. I'm glad that you could finally get out and about. And remember, I am going to put up some links. We're going to make a site donation to hurricane relief in Houston. Want to encourage you guys to join us. I'm going to check into that a little bit. There's got to be some way to start like a campaign.
Carey's going to put down $1 million. We need you to match that.
Never got. Won't happen. If I had $1 million,
well,
I don't.
We collectively dropped the ball by not winning the
You know how
lottery.
many pieces of equipment we have sitting around that I can't afford to fix? Cameras and such.
Just need to win the lottery.
I try.
I know. We all did.
All right, Eddie, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Josh, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate everybody listening. Go fill out those reviews and ratings on iTunes, and maybe we'll read yours next time. Just try and be as funny as the Trav dude was. He was hilarious. Great review there. So thanks a lot for listening. Good luck to the Sooners Saturday. Enjoy the game, folks, and we'll be back to break it all down and to preview Ohio State next week on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.